The crowd inside the newly opened Dallas Community Support Center rose to its feet as cameras flashed from every direction. Community leaders, business executives, church members, volunteers, and working families filled every seat, waiting for the billionaire whose name had become attached to one of the city's biggest community projects. Wayne stood quietly behind the podium, dressed in a dark tailored suit that reflected the success everyone expected from him. The applause slowly faded as he looked across the room, but instead of reaching for the microphone, his eyes settled on one person sitting several rows away, Cynthia. She wore a simple navy blue dress, holding herself with quiet confidence. She smiled politely, unaware that every eye in the room was about to turn toward her. Wayne stepped away from the podium. The audience exchanged puzzled looks. His board members frowned. Several reporters lowered their cameras for a better view. Without saying another word, Wayne walked straight toward Cynthia. He stopped in front of her. For a brief moment, the entire room became silent. Then Wayne spoke in a calm voice that carried through the hall. "The richest decision I ever made wasn't buying another company." He paused and looked directly into Cynthia's eyes. "It was pretending to be poor." Confused whispers immediately spread through the audience. People glanced at one another, unsure whether they had heard him correctly. A billionaire? Pretending to be poor? Before anyone could ask questions, Wayne slowly lowered himself onto one knee. A wave of surprised gasps swept across the room. Several guests smiled. Others quickly reached for their phones. One television cameraman hurried closer. Everyone believed they were about to witness a marriage proposal. Cynthia looked completely stunned. "Wayne," she whispered softly. "What are you doing?" Wayne smiled warmly but never looked away from her. "I've waited a long time to say this." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. The audience leaned forward together. Some people were already clapping in anticipation, but before Wayne could remove whatever he was holding, a sharp voice broke through the silence. "She doesn't belong here!" Every head turned. A well-dressed guest stood near the back of the hall. The woman pointed directly at Cynthia. "That's the cleaning lady who was accused of stealing." The celebration stopped instantly. The smiles disappeared. Camera flashes froze. The joyful atmosphere turned into complete silence. Some guests looked at Cynthia with uncertainty. Others quietly began whispering. Several people who had never met her suddenly looked uncomfortable. Cynthia slowly stood from her chair. She did not lower her head. She did not argue. She simply looked at Wayne, wondering whether this beautiful day was about to become the most painful moment of her life. Wayne rose to his feet. His expression changed completely. He turned toward the crowd with a calm confidence that filled every corner of the room. "You know her as a cleaning lady." He paused. "I know her as the woman who reminded me what real wealth looks like." He looked back at Cynthia with quiet gratitude. "But before anyone judges her," he glanced across the audience, "you deserve to know the truth. Before I continue this unforgettable story, may God bless every person teaching today. May your home be filled with peace, your family be protected, your work be fruitful, and may unexpected doors of favor open for you this week. If you're carrying any burden, may you find strength, hope, and better days ahead. Amen." Welcome to Love, Money, and Secret, where America's greatest stories and life lessons meet creativity and heart. If you're new to the family, we're grateful to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more unforgettable stories your way. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and if you believe kindness can still change someone's life, please like this video. Every like, comment, and subscription helps YouTube share these stories with more people who need them. Wayne let the silence settle over the room before speaking again. "I understand why some of you have questions," he said. "If all you know about Cynthia is a rumor, then you've only heard the smallest part of her story." He turned toward Cynthia for a moment, offering a reassuring smile before facing the audience again. "The truth didn't begin in this building." His voice became softer. "It began on a rainy night in Dallas, when she believed I was just an old man trying to make it home." The room remained completely still. Even the reporters lowered their cameras, sensing that something far more important than a ceremony was about to be shared. Wayne folded the paper in his hand and placed it back inside his jacket. "I wasn't wearing this suit." A few people exchanged curious glances. "I wasn't arriving in a luxury car." He smiled gently. "I wore an old coat that looked like it had seen better days, carried a worn paper bag, and walked the streets alone because I wanted to know one thing." He paused. "If the world believed I had nothing, would anyone still treat me with dignity?" His eyes drifted toward Cynthia again. That night, one person answered that question. The audience listened without a whisper. Wayne drew a slow breath. "I've spent years sitting in boardrooms where people agreed with everything I said because my signature could change their future. I've attended expensive dinners where every smile came with an expectation. I reached a point where I no longer knew whether people respected me or simply respected what I owned. He looked around the hall, so I decided to leave my name behind for one evening. No one interrupted him. I never expected the weather to become as bad as it did. A small smile crossed his face, and I certainly never expected to meet the woman sitting right there. Wayne raised his hand toward Cynthia. She had every reason to keep walking. The audience quietly turned to look at her. She had finished a long shift. She was tired. She wanted nothing more than to get home. And yet, he stopped himself, letting the words hang in the air. Before I tell you what she did, I want you to see that night exactly as I remember it. The applause, the celebration, and the elegant hall slowly faded from memory. Rain tapped against storefront windows across downtown Dallas. Streetlights shimmered across wet sidewalks. Office buildings emptied as workers hurried toward buses, trains, and parking garages before the storm became worse. Among them walked Cynthia. Her cleaning shift had just ended. She adjusted the strap of her worn work bag and glanced toward the dark sky. Her shoes were damp. Her shoulders ached after hours of cleaning offices that belonged to people she would probably never meet. Her phone battery blinked with its final warning. The last bus she needed was only minutes away. Missing it would mean a long wait in the rain. She picked up her pace, hoping she could still make it. She had no way of knowing that before this night was over, one simple decision would change not only her own future, but the future of a man who had spent years searching for something money had never been able to buy. The rain grew heavier with every block. Water flowed along the curbs, and passing cars sent small waves onto the sidewalks without slowing down. People hurried beneath umbrellas. Jackets pulled tightly around their shoulders, each person focused on getting home before the weather became even worse. Cynthia checked the time and let out a quiet sigh. If this bus leaves me, she muttered to herself, it's going to owe me an apology. Despite the long day, a small smile crossed her face. She had learned years ago that sometimes laughter carried a person farther than frustration ever could. She hurried toward the bus stop, carefully avoiding puddles that had already soaked the edges of her shoes. Just a short distance ahead, something caught her attention. Near a closed neighborhood pharmacy stood an elderly white man. His bent hat did little to keep the rain off his face. An old coat clung to him, completely soaked. One hand gripped a faded paper bag against his chest as though it contained everything important to him. The other searched uncertainly through the rain, trying to judge when it was safe to cross the street. Traffic never stopped. Headlights swept past him. One car rolled through a puddle, sending a sheet of water onto the sidewalk only inches away. The old man stepped back. Not one driver slowed. Not one pedestrian walked over. Most people looked in his direction for only a second before continuing on their way. Cynthia stopped walking. She looked toward the bus stop. Another glance at her phone told her she had almost no time left. If I leave now, she whispered, I can still make it. Her feet started forward, only 2 steps. She stopped again. She turned and looked back at the old man. He was still standing there, still waiting, still alone. Cynthia rubbed her forehead. Oh, Lord, she said quietly with a tired smile. You're really testing my schedule tonight. She knew exactly what helping him could cost. Missing the bus meant getting home much later. Getting home later meant less sleep before another early shift. Every hour mattered. Every dollar mattered. Every minute mattered. She looked across the street one more time. The old man adjusted his grip on the paper bag. The rain continued falling around him. For reasons she could not explain, she simply could not pretend she hadn't seen him. Her grandmother used to tell her that kindness only counted when it asked something of you. Those words returned to her without warning. Cynthia released a slow breath. There goes my bus, she said with a soft chuckle. But I guess somebody needs me more. Without another thought, she stepped away from the bus stop and walked toward the stranger standing alone in the rain. The old man noticed her approaching and looked up with quiet surprise. For the first time that evening, someone had chosen to see him instead of walking past him. Cynthia stopped beside him, raised her small umbrella so it covered both of them, and offered him the same warm smile she gave people in her own neighborhood. She still believed she was helping an ordinary elderly man find his way home. She had no idea she was standing beside one of the wealthiest men in Dallas. Cynthia tilted the umbrella a little higher so the rain would stop falling directly onto the old man's face. She looked him over from head to toe before shaking her head with a playful smile. Sir, she said, are you trying to become part of Dallas Road? Construction? For a second, the old man simply stared at her. Then a quiet laugh escaped him. It wasn't loud, but it was genuine. I don't believe that was my plan, he replied. Good, Cynthia answered, because the potholes around here already have enough company. The old man smiled again. It felt strangely natural. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him without trying to impress him or gain something from him. Do you live nearby? Cynthia asked. He nodded slowly. A few blocks away. You sure? I believe so. She raised one eyebrow. Believe so isn't exactly the answer I was hoping for. The old man laughed again. The rain makes it difficult for me to see. Cynthia glanced toward the busy street before looking back at him. Well, standing out here isn't helping either. She carefully took his arm. Easy now. He allowed her to guide him toward the sidewalk. Cars continued passing without slowing, but Cynthia waited patiently until there was enough space for them to cross safely. Once they reached the other side, she noticed him breathing a little easier. There, she said with satisfaction. One successful crossing. I'd say we're making progress. You've been very kind. My mama used to say kindness doesn't cost anything. She looked at him with a teasing grin. Although missing my bus is getting pretty expensive. The old man looked genuinely concerned. You'll miss your ride because of me? Oh, I already have. She shrugged as though it wasn't the end of the world. I'll survive. He hesitated before speaking. I don't want to be a burden. Cynthia gave him a look that mixed warmth with gentle humor. Sir, if I thought you were a burden, I'd have kept walking. The words settled deeply inside him. No one had spoken to him with such simple honesty in years. Not because he was important, not because he was wealthy, simply because she meant every word. The rain continued falling around them. The old man looked down at the paper bag he was carrying. I really appreciate this. Cynthia smiled. Don't thank me yet. She pointed farther down the street. You said you live a few blocks away. That's right. She laughed softly. Well, if you walk too slow, I'm charging you in prayer. The old man laughed harder than before. It was the kind of laughter that came from somewhere deep inside, surprising even him. As they began walking together beneath the small umbrella, neither of them noticed the black luxury vehicle parked nearly half a block away. Inside, a worried driver searched the sidewalks through rain-covered windows, unable to spot the man he had been quietly following from a distance. Cynthia never looked toward the vehicle. Wayne never acknowledged it. To her, he was simply an elderly man trying to get home on a difficult night. To him, she was unlike anyone he had met in a very long time. Side by side, they continued through the rain. Cynthia smiled at him. Come on. She gently adjusted her grip on his arm. I'll walk you home. That simple promise became the first step in a journey that would change both of their lives forever. Cynthia and the old man moved slowly along the wet Dallas sidewalk, sharing the small umbrella like two people who had known each other longer than 5 minutes. Wayne kept his steps measured, not too weak, not too strong. He wanted to remain believable, but Cynthia was sharp. Every time he moved too smoothly, her eyes narrowed just a little. You sure you need help? She asked. I'm sure the rain is making things difficult. That's not what I asked, Cynthia said. You walk like somebody pretending his knees are worse than they are. Wayne coughed to hide a laugh. I've been told I'm stubborn. Most men your age are, Cynthia replied. Some of y'all would rather fall into traffic than admit you need a hand. Wayne smiled beneath the bent brim of his hat. They passed a small church with a signboard near the entrance. Cynthia glanced at it and softened. That church right there fed half my block during the freeze. Folks around here may not have much, but if somebody cooks a pot of beans, everybody suddenly becomes family. You sound proud of your neighborhood. I am, she said. We don't have country club money, but we know how to check on people. Church aunties will ask if you've eaten before they ask your name. Wayne listened closely. There was no performance in her voice, no attempt to sound noble. She spoke like a woman who knew hardship but refused to let it make her cold. You have family waiting for you? He asked. My child, yes, Cynthia said, adjusting the umbrella. Probably wondering why I'm late. I told myself I'd get home early tonight, help with schoolwork, make something quick, maybe pretend I'm not tired. Pretend? Oh, single mothers are professional pretenders, she said. We pretend the bills don't scare us. We pretend we're not counting days before rent. We pretend cereal for dinner is a creative choice. Wayne looked at her carefully. You say that with humor. Because crying takes too much energy after a cleaning shift. He grew quiet. Cynthia noticed and nudged his arm lightly. Don't look sad for me now. I'm not telling you so you can pity me. I'm telling you because you asked. I understand. No, you listened, she said. That's different. The word struck him harder than she knew. They continued past closed shops, glowing traffic lights, and puddles, deep enough to baptize a shoe. Cynthia kept talking, not to impress him, but to keep the walk from feeling heavy. My rent is late sometimes, my fridge makes sounds like it's praying for retirement, and my phone battery is always acting brand new to poverty. But my child is loved. That counts. It counts more than most things, Wayne said. Cynthia looked at him with surprise. Well, listen to you. That almost sounded wise. Almost? Don't get proud. You're still out here in a coat that gave up in 1987. Wayne laughed again, openly this time. The sound warmed something between them. For Cynthia, he was still just an old man who needed help. For Wayne, she was becoming the first person in years who spoke to him without fear, flattery, or calculation. As they turned onto a quieter street, Wayne realized he had stopped testing the world. He was simply walking beside Cynthia, hoping the road would last a little longer. The street grew quieter as Cynthia and the old man reached the edge of a wealthy Dallas neighborhood. The sidewalks became smoother, the gates taller, and the houses larger than anything Cynthia passed on her daily bus ride. She slowed down and looked around. Now hold on, she said. You told me a few blocks away. You did not say we were walking into somebody's retirement dream. Wayne lowered his head, hiding his smile. It's just a little farther. A little farther, he says, Cynthia muttered. That is rich neighborhood. Language. Y'all measure distance differently over here. Wayne nearly answered too quickly, but caught himself. People around here do seem to have large properties. Cynthia stopped and stared at him. People around here, she repeated. Sir, you talking like you're visiting too. He gave a small shrug. I suppose the rain has confused me. Cynthia narrowed her eyes. That coat is not the only thing suspicious tonight. They continued until they reached a tall iron gate. Beyond it stood a massive mansion with warm lights glowing through wide windows. Cynthia looked from the mansion to the old coat, then back to the mansion again. For a moment, she said nothing. Wayne waited. Cynthia slowly pointed at him. If you live here, she said, your coat has been lying all evening. Wayne tried to hold back his laughter, but failed. It came out full and real, the kind of laugh that made his shoulders shake. Cynthia smiled. There it is. I knew you had some noise in you. You are very direct, Wayne said. I clean offices for people who pretend not to see me. Being direct saves time. That sentence quieted him. Wayne reached into his pocket and pulled out a few folded bills, still playing the role of a struggling man with very little to give. Please, he said. Take this for your trouble. Cynthia looked at the money, then looked at him. No, you missed your bus. I did. You walked me home in the rain. I did that too. Then let me repay you. She gently pushed his hand back toward him. Keep it. You might need it more than me tonight. Wayne froze. The words were simple, but they reached places inside him that applause, contracts, and expensive praise never touched. Cynthia adjusted her bag on her shoulder. Besides, if I start charging old men for crossing streets, my mama's going to find a way to fuss at me from heaven. Wayne swallowed, his voice quieter now. Thank you, Cynthia. She paused. I don't remember telling you my name. For one brief second, Wayne's face changed. Cynthia noticed. He quickly nodded toward the name tag clipped near her work bag. Your tag? She looked down, then laughed. Lord, I'm tired. All right, Mr. Mystery Coat, get inside before you melt. She turned and walked away through the rain, heading back toward the bus route with no idea what she had just done. Wayne stood at the gate until she disappeared around the corner. Only then did the gate open. He stepped inside the mansion. A member of the household staff hurried toward him, shocked by the cheap wet coat, bent hat, and soaked shoes. Wayne said nothing. He walked into a private room, removed the hat, peeled off the old coat, and looked at himself in the mirror. The disguise was gone. The billionaire had returned. But something in him had shifted. For years, people had treated Wayne like a name, a wallet, a business, opportunity, or a door they wanted opened. Cynthia had treated him like a human being, and she had done it when she believed he had nothing to offer. Wayne looked back toward the rain-streaked window. For the first time in a very long while, he did not feel powerful. He felt humbled. Morning arrived too quickly for Cynthia. Her alarm sounded from the edge of the small kitchen table, where her phone had finally charged enough to complain with noise. Cynthia opened one eye, reached for it, and nearly knocked over a stack of unpaid bills. Oh, so everybody wants my attention this morning, she mumbled. She sat up on the couch, still feeling the tiredness from the night before. Missing the bus had cost her more than time. It had stolen sleep, patience, and the small comfort of starting the day slowly. From the other room, her child called, Mama, are we late? Cynthia looked at the clock and jumped up. We are not late, she said quickly. We are moving with purpose. That means late. That means you are too smart before breakfast. She rushed into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and stared inside as, if a full meal might appear through faith alone, there were eggs a little, butter, and bread that had seen better days. Breakfast is about to be creative, she announced. A few minutes later, toast popped up darker than planned. Her child looked at it. Cynthia lifted the plate with confidence. That's not burnt. That's Dallas-style crispy. Her child laughed, and for a moment the apartment felt lighter. Cynthia smiled because that laugh was worth more than anything sitting on the bill pile. The furniture was old, the fridge hummed too loudly, and the kitchen chair wobbled if anyone leaned the wrong way, but love still lived there. She packed the school bag, checked homework, kissed her child's forehead, and reminded them to be respectful, pay attention, and never let anyone make them feel small. By the time Cynthia reached work downtown, her body already felt like it had completed a full shift. She tied her work apron, clipped her name tag properly this time, and rolled her cleaning cart down the hallway. The office building smelled like fresh coffee, expensive perfume, and people pretending they were not watching the cleaning staff. Cynthia kept her head high. She had barely started wiping down a conference room table when a sharp voice called from the lobby area. "Where is my bracelet?" Cynthia paused. Several employees turned. A wealthy client stood near the front desk, touching her bare wrist with panic and accusation already forming on her face. "I left it right here before my meeting," the client said. "It was very expensive." Cynthia continued standing quietly beside her cart. The woman's eyes moved toward her. "You were cleaning near this area, weren't you?" The question landed like a slap, even though no hand had been raised. Cynthia's mouth tightened. "Yes, ma'am. I cleaned the table and emptied the trash. I did not touch your bracelet." The supervisor stepped closer, looking uncomfortable but not brave. "Cynthia, maybe we should check your cart just to clear things up." Cynthia looked at him. "To clear things up for who?" No one answered. The lobby became painfully quiet. People who had greeted her with polite smiles suddenly looked away. Others watched like her dignity was a show they had permission to attend. Cynthia did not shout, she did not cry. She simply moved her cart forward and opened every section with steady hands, cleaning cloths, spray bottles, trash liners, nothing else. The bracelet was not there. Still, the silence did not apologize. The client folded her arms. "Well, it had to go somewhere." Cynthia felt the words press against her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Yes," she said, "but not with me." Her supervisor avoided her eyes. "We may need you to wait while this is reviewed." Cynthia nodded once. Inside, something hurt deeply, not because she had been questioned, but because after all her hard work, after every honest shift, after every late bus and tired morning, one rich woman's missing bracelet had made the room forget who Cynthia was. Across Dallas, Wayne stood in a private boardroom high above the city, dressed in a sharp suit, polished shoes, and the calm expression people expected from a billionaire. A long table stretched before him. Business reports waited on glass screens. Assistants moved quietly near the door. Executives sat with folders open, ready to discuss numbers, projects, and future investments. Everything around Wayne looked controlled, perfect, expensive. But his mind was not in the room. He kept seeing Cynthia beneath that small umbrella. He kept hearing her voice. "If you live here, your coat has been lying all evening." The memory nearly made him smile during a serious financial update. One executive stopped speaking. "Mr. Wayne, do you want us to repeat the projection?" Wayne blinked and looked up. "No," he said. "Continue." But even as the meeting moved forward, he knew something had changed. The night before, Cynthia had treated him with honesty before. She knew his name, his money, or his influence. That kind of truth was rare in his world. When the meeting ended, Wayne remained seated. One assistant approached carefully. "Is there anything else you need?" Wayne looked toward the Dallas skyline. "Yes, I need you to find the woman who helped me last night." The assistant waited. Wayne added, "Her name is Cynthia. She works downtown as part of a cleaning staff. Be discreet. Do not embarrass her, and do not disturb her family." Within an hour, information reached Wayne's desk. Cynthia was a 40-year-old single mother. She worked late cleaning offices. She lived carefully, paid what she could, and had a reputation among co-workers for being dependable and honest. Then Wayne read the latest note. A bracelet accusation had been made that morning. His face hardened. "Against Cynthia?" he asked. "Yes," the assistant said. "The client claims it went missing near her cleaning cart. The building is reviewing the matter." Wayne stood immediately. "Reviewing is not enough." The assistant followed him as he walked toward the private elevator. "Should I call ahead?" "No." Wayne buttoned his jacket. "I want to see how people behave when they do not know I am coming." Minutes later, his car pulled up outside the same office building where Cynthia stood waiting near the lobby wall, still in her work clothes, still holding herself together. She had not been fired. Not yet. But the damage had already begun. Every whisper felt heavy. Every passing glance carried suspicion. Cynthia kept her hands folded in front of her, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break. The elevator at the far end of the lobby opened. Several people turned. A tall, well-dressed white man stepped out with quiet authority. The lobby shifted instantly. Employees straightened. The supervisor went pale. The wealthy client stopped speaking. Cynthia looked up. At first, she saw only power. The suit, the confidence, the kind of man who made rooms rearrange themselves without raising. His voice. Then she noticed his eyes. Something about them was familiar. She had seen those eyes the night before, beneath a bent hat, under the rain, beside a closed pharmacy. Her breath caught. She knew those eyes, but she did not know this face. Wayne walked straight toward her. Cynthia stared at him, confused, cautious, and suddenly very still. Wayne stopped a few feet in front of Cynthia. The lobby became so quiet that even the soft hum of the elevator seemed loud. Cynthia stared at him, searching his face. The suit was different. The posture was different. The bent hat was gone. The soaked coat was gone. But those eyes were the same. Wayne spoke gently. "You walked me home last night." Cynthia's lips parted. The supervisor looked confused. The wealthy client shifted uncomfortably. Cynthia tilted her head, still trying to connect the man in front of her with the rain-soaked stranger outside the pharmacy. Then realization hit. She pointed at him. "Wait a minute." Wayne gave a small smile. Cynthia's eyes widened. "You're the old man with the lying coat?" A few people gasped. Someone behind the front desk dropped a pen. Wayne nodded. "Yes, and I owe you an apology for the coat." Cynthia blinked twice. "Sir, that coat didn't need an apology. It needed retirement papers." For the first time that morning, Wayne laughed, but his expression soon became serious. He turned toward the supervisor. "I understand Cynthia has been accused of taking a bracelet." The supervisor swallowed. "We are only reviewing the matter." Wayne looked around the lobby. "Then review it properly." The wealthy client stepped forward. "I don't know who you are, but my bracelet is missing, and she was cleaning near the area." Wayne looked at her calmly. "My name is Wayne." The room changed immediately. The supervisor's face lost color. Several employees straightened as if the floor had suddenly become official. The client's confidence weakened. Wayne continued, "And before anyone else damages this woman's name, I want the security footage shown now." No one argued. A few minutes later, they gathered near the security desk. Cynthia stood with her arms folded, her face steady, but her heart was beating hard. She had opened her cart. She had answered questions. She had remained calm. Still, part of her wondered whether people would believe what they wanted, no matter what truth showed them. The footage began. On the screen, Cynthia entered the lobby earlier that morning with her cleaning cart. She wiped the table, emptied the trash, and moved away without touching anything that did not belong to her. Then the wealthy client appeared. She placed the bracelet beside a folder near the front desk. A phone call distracted her. She picked up the folder, slid the bracelet inside by mistake, and walked into the conference room. The lobby stayed silent. The footage continued. Later, the same client opened her folder, noticed the bracelet, looked around, and quickly placed it into her handbag before walking back out with a worried expression. Company will also document that she was falsely accused and fully. Cynthia slowly turned her head toward the woman. The supervisor looked ashamed. Wayne's voice remained even. "It appears the bracelet was never stolen." The client's cheeks flushed. "I must have been confused." Cynthia answered quietly, "No, ma'am, you were comfortable." Those words landed harder than shouting would have. Wayne faced the supervisor. "Cynthia will receive a public apology in this lobby, full payment for the time she lost today, and written protection from retaliation. This, cleared." The supervisor nodded quickly. "Of course." Wayne looked at the client. "And you will apologize to her where everyone can hear it." The woman hesitated, but Wayne did not move. Finally, she turned to Cynthia. "I apologize. I should not have accused you." Cynthia held her gaze. "No, you should not have." There was no yelling, no chaos, just truth standing in the same room where suspicion had tried to sit first. Wayne looked at Cynthia with respect. Cynthia looked back at him, still stunned by the man beneath the old coat. For the first time that morning, the whispers stopped. Her name had been cleared, and everyone in that lobby knew it. After the apology, Cynthia picked up her work bag and stood a little straighter. The supervisor tried to speak again, but she lifted one hand. "Not right now," she said. "I need air before somebody explains my dignity back to me." Wayne stepped aside, giving her space instead of trying to control the moment. Outside the building, the morning sun reflected off the wet pavement left behind by last night's storm. Cynthia took one deep breath, then looked at Wayne. "So," she said, "you are not lost, not poor, and not helpless." Wayne smiled carefully. "Not exactly." "And that mansion was yours?" "Yes." "And the coat?" "A disguise." Cynthia folded her arms. "Testing strangers during a storm? That's rich people boredom." Wayne laughed before he could stop himself. "You may be right." "I know I'm right," Cynthia said. "Poor people don't test humanity in. The rain. We're trying to get home." That quiet truth wiped the humor from his face. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "You helped clear my name. That matters. I'd like to buy you coffee." Cynthia gave him a cautious look. "Coffee or a charity meeting?" "Coffee," Wayne said. "Somewhere you choose." That answer softened her suspicion a little. A short time later, they sat inside a simple neighborhood cafe not far from her workplace. No velvet chairs, no private dining room, no waiter folding napkins like artwork, just regular tables, warm coffee, and people minding their own business. Cynthia took a sip and watched him over the rim of the cup. You sit different without the old man act. How so? Like the chair is trying to impress you. Wayne laughed again. I don't mean to. I know, that's what makes it funny. He looked down at his coffee, then spoke with honesty. I disguised myself because I had stopped trusting people. In my world, kindness usually comes attached to a request. People laugh before the joke is finished. They agree before I finish speaking. After a while, you start wondering if anyone sees you at all. Cynthia listened, but she did not rush to comfort him. That sounds lonely, she said, but it still doesn't make your storm experiment smart. No, Wayne admitted, it does not. Good, we're making progress. Before we continue, let me ask you watching right now if you saw Wayne standing in the rain that night, dressed like he had nothing. Would you have stopped to help him, or would you have kept walking? Be honest in the comments. And if this story is teaching you something already, please like the video, subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret, and share it with someone who still believes kindness matters. Wayne leaned forward slightly. Cynthia, I don't want to turn your life into a project. I'm glad you said that. I mean it. You helped me when you thought I had nothing. Today, I only did what was right. Cynthia studied him. You understand I don't owe you friendship because you defended me. Yes. And I'm not impressed by money the way people think I should be. I noticed. She almost smiled. Wayne's voice became gentle. May I know you beyond that one night? Cynthia looked at him for a long moment. There was no pressure in his tone. No command hiding inside politeness. Just a question. Finally, she leaned back in her chair. One coffee, she said. Maybe two, if you behave. Wayne smiled. I'll do my best. Cynthia pointed at him. And no more costumes. His smile widened. No more costumes. The charity event took place 2 weeks later inside a polished Dallas venue filled with glass walls, soft music, and people who spoke in careful smiles. Wayne had invited Cynthia personally, but he had not pressured her. She had taken her time before agreeing. I'm coming as myself, she had told him. That is exactly who I invited, Wayne replied. Now Cynthia stepped through the entrance wearing a simple cream dress, low heels, and the same steady confidence she carried while pushing a cleaning cart. She did not arrive with diamonds, a designer, purse, or a nervous need to impress anyone. She arrived with her, shoulders straight and her eyes alert. Wayne saw her from across the room. For a second, he forgot the conversation around him. Cynthia caught his stare and lifted one eyebrow as if to say, Don't make this awkward. Wayne smiled and walked toward her. You came, he said. I said I would, Cynthia replied. I don't play with my word. I'm glad, she looked around the room. You have a lot of people here pretending they don't know they're staring. Wayne glanced toward the guests. Several quickly looked away. I apologize. Don't apologize for their neck muscles. They made their choice. Wayne laughed softly. He led her toward the refreshment table, where small plates were arranged with tiny portions of food that looked more like decorations than dinner. Cynthia stared at one plate for a moment. Wayne, yes? Do rich people eat, or do y'all just decorate plates and call it generosity? He coughed to cover a laugh. You don't approve? I'm trying to find the meal. All I see is a suggestion. Wayne leaned closer. I'll make sure you get real food after this. You better, because if this little cracker is dinner, we need to pray for everybody in here. He laughed again, but his eyes remained on her with admiration. Cynthia did not shrink under the attention. She did not pretend to belong by copying anyone else. She belonged because she carried herself like a woman who knew her worth before entering the room. Still, not everyone welcomed her presence. Across the venue, a small group of wealthy guests watched Cynthia with tight smiles. They whispered while pretending to study the program booklet. One woman looked Cynthia up and down, then murmured loudly enough to be heard. So this is the woman from the cleaning staff? Another voice replied. Wayne does enjoy making a statement. Cynthia heard it. Wayne heard it too. His jaw tightened, but Cynthia placed a light hand near his arm. Don't, she said quietly. They have no right. I know, Cynthia answered, but let them finish showing who they are. Wayne looked at her, surprised by her calm. Cynthia took a slow sip of water, turned slightly toward the guests, and smiled with a grace that carried more strength than anger. The room was about to learn that she had not come there to be anyone's silent lesson. The quiet conversation among the wealthy guests did not stay quiet for long. One of them stepped forward just enough for Cynthia to hear every word. I suppose it's nice that Wayne wants to help people. the guest said with a polite smile that never reached the eyes. I only hope people don't confuse generosity with opportunity. The room grew still. Several nearby guests pretended not to listen while listening to every word. Cynthia turned toward the speaker without the slightest sign of fear. She did not raise her voice. She did not become defensive. Instead, she answered with the same calm honesty that had guided her on the rainy sidewalk. I walked him home when I thought he had nothing. The words settled across the room. No one interrupted. Cynthia continued. I didn't know where he lived. I didn't know his last name. I didn't know he owned companies. I saw an older man standing alone in the rain, and I helped him because that's how I was raised. Silence spread through the ballroom. No speech prepared by professionals could have carried more weight than those simple sentences. Wayne looked at Cynthia with quiet admiration. She had defended herself without attacking anyone else. She had protected her dignity without asking him to do it for her. Wayne stepped beside her. He looked across the room before speaking into the microphone that had been waiting for his scheduled remarks. Many people in this room know how I built successful businesses. He paused. Very few know who reminded me why success should matter. His eyes rested on Cynthia. The woman standing beside me never asked for money. She never asked for influence. She never asked for recognition. When she believed I was just an old man with nowhere to go, she gave me something I could not buy. The ballroom remained completely quiet. Wayne continued, That is why tonight I am announcing something far more important than another business investment. A large screen behind him displayed the title of a new initiative, Dallas Community Support Program. Wayne explained that the program would provide practical help for hardworking families through childcare assistance, employment training, emergency rent support, and career development opportunities. This program will not tell communities what they need, Wayne said. It will begin by listening. He turned toward Cynthia. That is why I would like to offer Cynthia a paid leadership position as a community advisor. A wave of surprise moved through the audience. Wayne smiled. Not because she needs saving, but because she understands the people this program is meant to serve far better than I ever could. Every eye returned to Cynthia. She took a moment before answering. Wayne, he waited. I appreciate your confidence. She looked around the room before continuing. But if I accept this role, everyone needs to understand one thing. Her voice remained calm. I will never become anybody's charity symbol. She looked directly at Wayne. I won't smile for photographs just to make wealthy people feel generous. I won't pretend every family needs the same answer. And I won't stop speaking honestly just because the paycheck gets bigger. Wayne smiled without hesitation. I would not ask you to. In fact, he nodded respectfully. Those are exactly the reasons I'm asking. For the first time that evening, Cynthia smiled without reservation. It sounds like we understand each other. We're beginning to, Wayne answered. The audience applauded. This time the applause felt different. It was no longer about a billionaire making a generous announcement. It was about two people from completely different worlds choosing to build something together with respect instead of pride. As the applause continued, Wayne leaned slightly toward Cynthia. I believe I still owe you that real dinner. Cynthia smiled playfully. With actual portions? I've already made sure of it. She laughed. Well, you're learning. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was forced. Their growing affection rested on trust, honesty, and the simple truth that neither of them wanted to change who the other was. It was the strongest foundation either of them had known in years. Months passed, and Cynthia's life did not turn into a fairy tale overnight. That was exactly why people trusted it. She still woke up early. She still checked prices before buying groceries. She still reminded her child to finish homework before asking for snacks. But now, her work had changed. Instead of cleaning conference rooms where people barely looked at her, Cynthia helped shape the new Dallas Community Support Center from the inside. She sat in planning meetings and spoke plainly. Working parents don't need speeches, she told Wayne one morning. They need childcare that opens before their shift starts, training classes after work hours, and emergency help that doesn't make them feel ashamed for asking. Wayne listened, took notes, and never interrupted. That alone impressed her. The center opened its doors in a familiar Dallas neighborhood where families could reach it by bus, by walking, or by calling someone from church who always knew somebody with a car. There were rooms for job training, after-school support, rent assistance appointments, and a small food pantry stocked with things people actually used. Cynthia walked through the building on opening week, touching one hand lightly against a desk. This, she said quietly, is going to help somebody breathe. Wayne stood beside her. Because you told us what people needed. Because you listened, she corrected. He smiled. Fair. Wayne began showing up in Cynthia's community without acting like he owned the place. At the church fundraiser, he arrived in a simple shirt, carrying a donation envelope and looking nervous enough for Cynthia to tease him. "You look like you're about to give a business presentation to the choir." "I'm trying to be respectful." "Good. Start by not calling the potato salad a side option. Around here, that can start problems." At the cookout, Wayne learned even more. He accepted a paper plate from one of the church aunties, but when 3 different people started adding food, he held it too carefully, like it might require insurance. Cynthia laughed so hard she had to turn away. "What?" Wayne asked. "You got billionaire hands," she said. "They don't know what to do with foil." Her child laughed too, and that laugh mattered to Wayne more than any applause he had ever received. At first, Cynthia's child watched him with careful eyes, protective of their mother in the way children learn to be when life has made them grow up too soon. Wayne never forced closeness. He asked about school, remembered small details, and showed up when he said he would. One afternoon at the center, Cynthia saw them sitting together at a table, working through homework. Wayne looked completely serious while her child explained a math problem with the confidence of a tiny professor. Cynthia leaned against the doorway. "Well, look at that," she said. "Somebody finally found a meeting you can't control." Wayne looked up. "I'm being taught, as you should be." Their relationship grew in quiet steps. Coffee after long meetings, walks outside the center before sunset, phone calls that started with program updates and ended with laughter. Wayne never tried to buy Cynthia's affection, and Cynthia never treated his money like a shortcut to trust. When he brought groceries, one evening, he claimed he had accidentally ordered too much. Cynthia looked at the bags. "Wayne, nobody accidentally orders this much rice." "I may have miscalculated." "You may have lied politely." He smiled. "Possibly." She accepted the help because he offered it with respect, not control. Little by little, Cynthia allowed him closer, not because he was rich, not because he had cleared her name, but because he kept showing up as the same man, without the disguise, patient, honest, and willing to learn. There was no rushing, no perfect fantasy, just 2 people building trust carefully, with Cynthia's child, her community, and her dignity included in every step. By the time the Dallas Community Support Center held its official celebration, the work had already started changing lives. Parents who once had to choose between a job interview and childcare now had support. Workers who had been treated like they were invisible could walk into the center and speak to people who understood them. Families facing emergency rent trouble could ask for help without being spoken to like they had failed. Cynthia made sure of that. She did not let the center become another place where people with money guessed what struggling families needed. She made it practical, respectful, and honest. Wayne's legal team also finished reviewing the bracelet incident from Cynthia's old workplace. The truth went beyond one careless accusation. Other workers had been questioned unfairly in the past, and some had never received apologies. Wayne refused to let that continue. New worker protection policies were introduced. Every accusation now required proper evidence before any employee could be embarrassed in public. Cleaning staff received written rights, fair review procedures, and clear protection from retaliation. Cynthia's name was fully cleared in writing, publicly and permanently. Justice had not arrived loudly. It arrived properly. On the day of the community celebration, Cynthia stood in the front row as Wayne stepped onto the stage before hundreds of people. It was the same moment where everything had started in the hook. Wayne began honoring Cynthia, but before he could finish, that harsh voice from the audience tried to shame her again. "She's the cleaning lady who was accused of stealing." The room froze. This time Cynthia did not flinch. Wayne turned toward the crowd. "You know her as a cleaning lady," he said. "I know her as the woman who reminded me what real wealth looks like." He lifted a folder. "And for anyone still holding on to that accusation, here's the truth." Cynthia was cleared completely. The accusation was false. The company corrected its policies, and because of what happened to her, other workers are now protected. Applause rose across the room. Wayne turned back to Cynthia. "The night she walked me home, she believed I was nobody important. That was the moment I learned who she truly was." Cynthia's eyes filled, but her humor stayed with her. "You better not cry in front of all these people," she said softly. "I don't have tissues rich enough for this." The crowd laughed warmly. Wayne smiled, then lowered himself onto one knee again. But this time, no one interrupted. "Cynthia," he said, "I am not asking you to leave your world for mine. I am asking if we can build something honest together with your child. Your community, your voice, and your dignity included." Cynthia looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached for his hand. "Yes," she said. "But love with me comes with homework, community, events, real food portions, and no more lying coats." Wayne laughed through the emotion. "I would not want it any other way." The crowd stood and cheered. Cynthia had not been rescued from her life. She had been respected in it. Wayne had not found someone to admire his wealth. He had found someone who helped him become worthy of it. The lesson was simple. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness reveals the biggest truth about a person. Cynthia thought she was walking an old man home in a storm. Instead, she walked into the moment that restored her dignity, exposed injustice, strengthened her community, and opened the door to a love built on respect. If this story touched your heart, comment the biggest lesson you learned today. Like this video, share it with someone who still believes kindness matters, and subscribe to Love, Money, and Secret for more heartfelt stories where love, life, and justice meet.